Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and a major announcement has just hit Rostermania, which shapes massively which rosters are still yet to come, but a huge upgrade on paper here, I think, for Minnesota. Definitely going to be some mixed opinions on this one, but with Seattle Surge and Los Angeles Guerrillas arguably turning their franchise's history around over the last couple of years, can Minnesota do the same with this brand new team? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. There's going to be more to come on these announcements over the coming days, so make sure you don't miss anything. The notification bell also is pretty helpful for that type of stuff as well. This I thought was funny from Doug, but we'll move on rather swiftly because there is plenty to discuss. Just to say this, because some noticed that in Vanguard there was something appearing here for August 25th, which I'm not really sure what this was meant to be. Some people said this was just a bug. Others said that maybe they were planning to do the All-Star event here, even though it wouldn't make any sense because who's going to want to get on Vanguard again? And they delayed it from the middle of the season for some reason. So yeah, people said this was just a bug. Like 99.9% sure there's nothing going on here, but not really sure why this was still coded into appearing in the game. But in fairness, it's pretty cool that type of stuff was in the game in the first place. Hopefully it'll be in there a little bit sooner for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. This just to mention because this tweet actually got deleted by Sib. Now, look, reading this, I think a lot of people thought, wow, he's signing a contract. He must be going to FaZe. Now, I don't necessarily think that's the case. My guess is that he's just re-signing a longer deal with this Seattle Surge. Maybe they want to kind of commit him to a couple of years deal, like we saw with Arcitys and Spark signing these new 3-year deals that are now allowed. Now look, these COD players need to get good agents to actually tell them what's a good idea and what's not, because some players signing 3-year deals might not be great for them depending on where their careers go. Like even 1 year is a long time in Call of Duty, let alone 3. So we'll see how it goes. Of course, I'm not saying Sib at all is signing a 3-year deal with Seattle Surge, but I do wonder if, because of course they extended his contract as LAG did with Spart, but they can still say, look, Spart, okay, yeah, we've extended your deal, but let's just re-sign a new arrangement and kind of waive that one so that we have a 3-year contract in place. Sib could have had the same discussion with Surge. They're like, look, we want to commit to you and lock you down a little bit longer. They probably, if they know what they're doing, would have said the same thing to Pred, because the risk with Pred is, of course, that he's extended on a 1+1. He's not going to go to FaZe or OpTic now, but potentially next year, if he was a unrestricted free agent after this season, Pred could just walk away to a FaZe, to an OpTic, to a Thieves, whoever wants him, and they probably will want him if he has another year like he's had this year. So, Surge have probably got to also think about locking him down on a more long-term arrangement. Maybe they're planning the same thing with Sib, or maybe he just has signed for FaZe, and that's where he's going in the first place. That's a possibility as well. I believe even FaZe just confirmed, as these announcements were coming out from the Minnesota Rokkr, that Prestinni is also gone from FaZe. We already knew this, right? That Prestinni was no longer going to be a part of their roster. Of course, they could technically bring Prestinni back on their bench, but he's not going to be part of the starting roster, of course. So, yeah, that's the Prestinni side, but also you've got Priester, similar names but different organizations, but both unrestricted free agents, as Rokkr confirm, thanks to Preston for representing Rokkr with tenacity and calm presence in games. Yes, Priester's gone. Difficult couple of years for him since the Atlanta FaZe days. It's not been so good for Priester. We do believe he's going to go to the New York Subliners as their kind of flex player. Like, people are wondering, okay, how does this guy keep getting good spots in the league? I still think he kind of has earned it for now, just on reputation, but yeah, one more season, and it might be curtains for Priester, to be fair, because it's been a difficult couple of years, and Rokkr have decided not to build around him going forward. And that's the thing with Minnesota, right? Outside of that Stage 5 victory last year, they really haven't done much at all. They won Stage 5 last season. They came top 4 at Champs, I think, last year. This year, they've done practically nothing at all, failed to qualify for the World Championship, and look, they've decided to blow it up. Havoc, I thought, was a pretty good piece, honestly. I'm surprised in a way that I haven't heard Havoc links to more teams. I thought that Havoc, and especially Standy here, we'll look at right now, is, these are 2 SMG players. They're pretty solid players, right? Standy had a crazy good breakout season in Cold War, wasn't particularly good this year. Havoc was a very serviceable player for Rokkr, and when he joined, I think the team did get better. So I'm surprised I haven't heard more teams linked to these guys. I thought teams like Florida would be foaming at the mouth to try and sign some of these guys as unrestricted free agents. You'd have thought so, at least, but I guess they like their AR players a bit more, and even, a team like Vegas, right? Because the thing is, okay, guys like aBeZy might be on the market, but it seems a restricted free agent, when there's guys like Havoc and Standy out there that Vegas could get for free with no buyouts. Like, that's probably a more attractive option for them. So that's where I think they might end up going, but these guys are too good to be outside of the league, I think. But Minnesota confirm those 3 are gone, and they confirm this for Dylan Price attach, all-star COD veteran hot tub model. Like, obviously a very different tweet here, and even I believe he did say in the reply somewhere, yeah, thank you for everything. But yeah, of course, a very different style of tweet. You know when you see this that, of course, attaches is going to be returning to the team, even as Misha once again points out that Bance is liking tweets about, Minnesota and stuff. So it was very clear for a few days what this roster was planning to do, especially when Toronto announced the removal of Cammy, or not the removal, but they've sold Cammy effectively, and his buyout has been met, and he's going to go over to the team we shall see here in a second. And I've got to say, really, this is pretty incredible for Minnesota they've managed to do this, because they've effectively taken half of the Toronto team and brought it over to Minnesota, and it's especially spicy in a way, just because the Battle of the North, right, Toronto versus Minnesota, has been quite a good, rivalry the last couple of seasons. I don't really think it's been one that's been forced too much. Yes, they did in the early days keep going on about this whole Battle of the North thing, but in fairness, the two rosters the last couple of years have had some good battles, and now Minnesota have taken two of arguably the best players from that Toronto team and brought them to Minnesota and are trying to effectively form a superior Minnesota Rokkr squad to what Toronto have had the last couple of seasons. And Cammy's going to be part of it. Toronto announced he is officially gone, and then the confirmation comes through. The press conference is still live as it stands. I'll catch up on it later because there are some things to mentioned in that press conference just in a second here. But things are going to get really spicy in that Battle of the North. The other reason for that, of course, is that they wanted Afro Toronto, and Minnesota Rokkr took him away and made a team with him instead. So that adds more fuel to the fire. Just wanted to mention quickly, because I guess when a roster change happens, the first question is, should they have made a change? I think they certainly should have done, really. Their respawn gameplay the last couple of seasons has not been good at all. Their search again, 22-17. They were 20-27 in hardpoint this year, but a lot of the times in crucial series it wasn't really working, and I think their game 1 record at the start of the year was absolutely atrocious. So it was clear that if these guys wanted to contend more consistently, they needed to just effectively upgrade many of their players. Attach was effectively the star guy on their team this year. He was a flex technically, but now I suppose he's going to be slotting into the main AR role with this confirmation coming through. The actual video is really good here, so I'll just make sure it shows on screen because you guys will enjoy this one. They did a great job putting together this graphic. But yeah, this is the roster of 4. Attach is coming back. Now look, Attach, they probably had to pay him a fair amount of money to make him return to this team. He would have had offers elsewhere. He could have gone maybe to Los Angeles Guerrillas. That was talked about being on the table for a time. They've obviously given him a good amount of money to come back to the Minnesota Rokkr and build the team there. The rest of the team I think is incredibly exciting, especially as a UK Call of Duty fan. Another organization is going for UK talent. So we've got Afro, right? Afro, they've bought him out. Well, they haven't really bought him out of London because at London he was an unrestricted free agent. He could have just walked away. London, I guess, didn't offer him enough to stay. And I think I'm happy that Afro has taken this plunge and said, look, let me move to another team that isn't a London, that's going to try and form a better roster than London has been able to the last couple of years. And, an organization that's really intent on competing for championship victories. That's what Rokkr are aiming to do here. They're not here to come top 6, top 2, top 3, whatever. They're here to win events, right? And they obviously got that, taste for victory back at Stage 5 last year. They want to form a team that can do that again. And I really like the fact that Afro comes in here, not with 3 American guys where the chemistry might not be so good. It's with Cammy and with Bance, UK players. And then Attach, I think, a really chill guy. He's going to get on perfectly well with these guys. I can't really see any friction because usually kind of a European or UK players team with North American players, in COD history, it hasn't generally worked out that well. There's not many examples of teams that have succeeded on. In fact, there's pretty much none at all. But if one can work, I think that this is a good example of where that might happen. So first of all, they've got some incredible star talent. Bance is effectively going to be the glue for this team. Attach, we know what he can do on the AR. Of course, he's effectively going to be the main now, which I do kind of like, really. I think his playstyle pretty much suited that rather well last season. And it does mean that at times Rokkr, their pacing, obviously a bit of a buzzword, but it does seem like sometimes some of their players are really fast, others are really slow, and they're not really so cohesive. Whereas with Attach being your main and Cammy being your flex, you're going to have a pretty aggressive AR line, right, that isn't really going to suffer in a fast-paced environment, as Modern Warfare is rather likely to be. So Attach will be back indeed, and this is the team of 4. So, I mean, look, as a UK fan, I'm really excited for the potential of this team. I think that Cammy and Afro, you kind of know what you're going to get from Attach, I think. I think Attach is pretty well-defined what he's going to deliver. He might not play quite as well as he did last year, but he could well be a 1.10 main AR type player. Bance, I think, is, you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to be a 0.95, 0.90, 1.0, probably turn up in some grand finals and on LAN or something like that. But, he's obviously going to be the glue to this team, really, making the smart plays, adding to the communication, being the leader for the team, and maybe even helping Afro kind of develop a little bit more that he might not have the opportunity to do so far on London. Then Cammy and Afro, this is where the pressure is on for these guys, because these guys are here to be the star players. You can talk about Attach, but in terms of flex player, and usually your flex guy is the guy you really want slaying out hard. At least in an ideal world, that's where you really want to put your best player, in theory at least, so he can maximize the potential of that role. And then Afro, all the pros rate Afro incredibly highly. Yes, he is a bit inconsistent, at least he has been so far this season, but at his peak, Afro has shown me that he can be one of the best SMGs in the game. If you can hit that consistency on a regular basis, is, then Afro can be a really scary SMG force. So it's interesting really because I think you can compare this to the old Toronto team, right? You've got minus Insights plus Attach, and then you've got minus CleanX plus Afro. So there can be some similarities there. I think honestly on paper there isn't too many differences between the two. I think it can work out probably equally as well in theory, at least at the peak of their performances, maybe what Toronto Ultra was a couple of years ago. But I think at absolute peak performance, this team actually might have a bit more firepower. And if you can get a Cold War Cammy and even like an end of Cold War Afro or something, then this team can really have the same power to compete. But I think that's where the pressure is. Can Cammy go from a 1.05 like he had this year in a pretty average year for him back to like the dominant player he was at the end of Cold War? If he can, this team could be a real contender, right? I think they've done everything right here in Minnesota. They've upgraded on their weaknesses. They've got a team that should be very good in the respawns. They've got star talent on the roster now, and the chemistry should work out rather well. It's a matter whether these players can deliver, right? But I really can't see this team being bad, right? I think this team is, you know, maybe top 6, top 8 at like the worst they're possibly going to be. But they have the potential to get right up there in the mix of, you know, top 4, top 3. I think that's where I think this team can be on occasion, and even they can go further if it's their particular event, right? I'm also comparing this team to last year's roster with the particular roles. Like, you know, Cammy I think is a massive upgrade on Priester. Then I think Afro's a massive upgrade on Standy the way he played last year. And then, okay, Bance and Havoc, you can maybe go either way, but I feel like, you know, Bance with the chemistry that he should bring with these other UK guys makes a bit more sense. So compared to last year's roster, this one is a massive upgrade on paper. And even though Los Angeles Guerrillas last season didn't really turn a corner in a way, they won a kind of a fluke event, but they at least took some steps in the right direction to becoming a competitive franchise after a disastrous 2021 and 2020, of course. Minnesota have had the same season in a way. They've had a really bad season last year in Vanguard, of course, by their standards. And Seattle Surge, also a team that had an incredibly bad first couple of years and then turned it around. I feel like this could be the moment where Minnesota start to prove that, yeah, we're not just here to win Game 5 Search and Destroys, we can actually compete in the respawns as well. And Attach obviously sees enough in this roster to want to stay, because he was unrestricted. Yes, they probably offered him a bag to stay, but he probably could have gone elsewhere and got a lot of money anyway. So he obviously feels like this roster could be the one. These are Attach's numbers from last year. This is Cammy, a pretty like average year for Cammy, honestly, on the whole. But from my understanding, that the chemistry within that camp was kind of breaking down to a certain extent. They were kind of fed up with teaming each other and wanted to move apart. Clearly, Cammy and Bance are happy to run it back here. So, you know, obviously we know what those duo can do. I think from a chemistry perspective, it makes a lot of sense what Minnesota Rokkr are doing. This team could fall flat, right? Like, look, without getting Simp and aBeZy and Shotzzy and these guys that you know are going to be superstar players, you can never guarantee anything. But out of all the free agents on the market and the guys they could have acquired, I think they've done a pretty good job across the board. If you guys are Minnesota fans, definitely let me know what you think about this roster. Obviously, there's an incentive for me to be biased here towards some of the UK players. I very well admit that, and there are other very good rosters being formed right now, but I certainly don't think we've seen yet the best from some of these players, and it could be extracted from this roster. So pretty nice roster, I think, on paper. Not going to be, you know, top 1 team off the rip. You've got OpTic there, you've got FaZe there, Thieves, of course, Seattle Surge, but right on the cusp of all of those names, I think that's where Rokkr find themselves now on paper at the very least. Just to run you guys quickly through some of the notes here from the press conference, and also this interesting to note, so their substitute is going to be both Fame and Real, right? This very promising Spanish player from the Rokkr Academy is going to be joining their roster. That's really exciting to me. I think that's another great call from these guys. A few of the things here were mentioned, saying that, yeah, Cammy had an average year last year. We believe that he can step it up from there and get even better. And also some talk here that all their players are on 1-year deals with a team option to the second year. So they're not guaranteeing this team's going to work. I think this is a good idea for Minnesota. Say, okay, give you guys 1 year, and if we want to extend you, we can. So they at least leave the option open to make changes next season or even mid-season, of course, if they would like to. But they're not locking any of these guys down to 3-year deals, as LA Guerrillas have done, arguably in a rather risky decision. Also confirming they won't be hosting a major this season as well. They hosted a great one last year, so that's not going to happen this year. Going to give the opportunity to some other organizations, I suppose, but it will be back probably in due course as well. And even Afro kind of confirming his decision to come here, saying this team is the best structured with all the options he had. So saying he had a lot of options, and this is the best one he saw, and I think understandably so. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.